This is a trick you need to know for bakery-style banana bread at home. It is buttery and rich and moist and flavorful, but it is so easy to make, a huge crowd pleaser, and it happens to be completely vegan. If you're new here, my name is Nicole, also known as Nikki Vegan. I make practical vegan recipes for real life, meaning delicious food that you really want to eat, but is practical and doable enough for real busy life. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's get started making some banana bread. The first thing we're gonna do is preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Instead of using chicken's eggs, I use flax eggs, and so I'm just gonna mix together some ground flax seeds and some water. The water will absorb, and this will go from a liquid into kind of a gel in about 5 to 10 minutes. So I like to do this first so that it is setting and thickening while I'm doing everything else. I always like to do the thing that takes the longest and work backwards from there. Then we're gonna take some overripe spotty bananas. You're gonna need about 2 and just mash it up and measure out 1 cup of mashed banana, and then you can go ahead and just set that aside. Into a big mixing bowl, I'm gonna mix together my flour, my baking soda, and my baking powder. Whenever I'm working with flour, I like to fluff it up first and then spoon it into the measuring cup. I'll spoon in more than I need so that I have a bit of a dome on top, and then use a butter knife to level it off and make sure it's perfectly flat on top. Then I'm gonna go ahead and add some cinnamon, nutmeg, and salt. The salt is gonna make this taste really nice and buttery. It also helps to kind of balance out the sweetness of the bananas. And the cinnamon and the nutmeg aren't super forward. It's not like a pumpkin bread, for example, where you really get this strong, warming pumpkin spice flavor. It's more just kind of a complement to the bananas, and again, just makes everything taste really cozy and buttery and delicious. I find it's the little things that make a big difference with baking, so actually taking a second to whisk together the dry ingredients so that all of the leaveners are evenly incorporated, it actually makes a pretty big difference. Baking soda in particular has a tendency to clump up, and so I like to use a little sifter. I have this little one for dusting. You can use it for powdered sugar or for cocoa powder, but it also works really well for jobs like this. I just measure out the baking soda and pour it over the little sifter. It makes it to where there are no clumps, and you're not gonna get little bits of hard baking soda in your cake or cookies or banana bread, because that does not taste good. In another bowl, I'll mix together sugar and melted coconut oil. I like to measure with melted coconut oil, and that way you can get an accurate measurement. I feel like if you use regular coconut oil that's room temperature, it can be varying levels of solid and dense. So if it's melted and you measure out half a cup, you know you're gonna get the perfect amount. We're gonna combine these together, and it's actually pretty important to whisk this for about 30 seconds to a minute. It might seem like you could just stir it all together, but the more you whisk at this stage, the better result you're gonna have. So I do this for about a minute. Then I'm gonna add some vanilla, which is so delicious with bananas and with the cinnamon. It's just gonna make this so good, and it smells amazing. Then I'll add the now thickened flax egg, and you can see the before and after here. It goes from being a liquid to more of a gel. So I'm gonna add that into the bowl, and here again, I'm gonna whisk for about 1 to 2 minutes. You want it to be almost caramel-like, like it's gonna get really thick. I wouldn't say it gets fluffy like when you're creaming butter and sugar together for cookies, but it is going to kind of get glossy. It's gonna get thicker, and it's just gonna have a different feeling. Like you'll be able to feel it when you're whisking, that there's a little bit more of a resistance, and this is gonna really help to create a nice texture for the banana bread. Now here's that trick that I was talking about at the beginning of the video. We're gonna alternate the next few ingredients. So I'm gonna start by adding just half of the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. I typically like to switch over to a firm spatula, like a sturdy spatula at this point. I just find it's easier to work the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients this way. And the key here is really not to overmix. We're just trying to incorporate the flour until really no more flour is visible, but we don't have to like mix and mix and mix. I'll add the remaining dry ingredients and do that one more time, and then add just half of the mashed banana. Again, I'm just gonna mix until the banana is well combined. Then I'll add half of the water and finish with the remaining half banana and the remaining half water. So basically you add half the dry ingredients in at a time, half the banana and half the water. And what this does is it really helps to create a beautiful texture in the finished product. Spray a loaf pan. I usually use like a coconut oil spray, and then you'll transfer the batter to the loaf pan. And if you want, you can sprinkle with walnuts. I highly recommend. I think it's a delicious combination with the bananas. Chocolate chips is also good, but anything you like really. You could even do a little sprinkle of sugar if you want, like turbinado sugar, so it gets that nice kind of crispy, crunchy, sugary topping. That's delicious as well. But once you have topped it with whatever you like, you can go ahead and pop this in the oven. It's gonna bake for an hour, at which point your house is going to smell so good. I feel like I say that a lot in baking videos, but the way that baked goods smell is truly one of my favorite parts of baking. And you know, I've lived in a lot of different places in my life, and I feel like no matter where I am, whether I'm home with my family or I'm in a tiny little apartment in Los Angeles, it really does create this sense of like hominess, you know? So I really like that as well. Another key trick that I think is really important is to actually let it cool on a wire baking rack. You always read that in recipes and it always seems like, yeah, like not gonna do that, just dig right in. And listen, if you wanna dig right in, go for it. It's gonna be delicious no matter what. But for that bakery style crumb texture, it is actually pretty important to let the banana bread cool on a baking rack. This is gonna allow for air to circulate all the way around the pan, which will help the banana bread to set up properly. To recap, the things that really make a difference when you're making banana bread. One, using very, very overripe bananas. It's just gonna create the best flavor. Two, really mixing the wet ingredients. You wanna make sure that you're beating the sugar with the coconut oil and the flax egg until it's lighter and fluffier, and that's gonna do wonders for the texture. Three, you wanna alternate adding the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients and alternate the bananas and the water. That way we're not over mixing. And finally, letting the banana bread cool on a wire rack is going to encourage even cooling. Waiting for 30 minutes really does make a difference in terms of the crumb structure, but you know what? It's also delicious if you dig right in. I think this banana bread is delicious served with vegan butter or vegan cream cheese or almond butter or peanut butter, or honestly just on its own. Or you could warm it up and have it with some vegan ice cream on top. That's delicious as well. I really hope that you guys love it. And for more vegan baking recipes, you can go ahead and check the playlist in the description box below that has a bunch of my favorite vegan baked goods, or you can just click right here on the screen. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in a video very soon. Bye everyone.